Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Sarath Sagar. Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Sagar, we can hear you. Very good afternoon.
Thank you. I
Yeah, so how are you
I'm
doing?
feeling
Yes, how are
the
you doing?
volume is slightly. Give me a quick second.
Yes, of course. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, now I think the audibility will probably be much higher for me at least. Yes,
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so
thank you.
probably we already have around 60 plus. Generally, we used to have around 70 to 80. So the student will join because we are keeping it open. Uh, we can start by the time they come, or should we wait for a couple of minutes? How do you suggest?
Whatever you deem fit, I am here to largely,
Yeah.
follow instructions.
So kind and humble of you. Absolutely all right. Thank you so much. So probably maybe we made a couple of minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, because I was told that the student were having a online classes. So the classes will finish by 300, 3:15. So then it can be you know uh, ready. So by the time the student joins, so let me brief about our institution. This Bineshwar Brahma Engineering College is a state-owned institute, and that is founded in 2010. Since the state government, so the progress and then the activity are very much like a government is limited, but we thought that why not our student resource could be utilized to in order to channelize them into a right direction, and then the social responsibilities. So this Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, which is the government of India institution or formation, and then we started connecting with different people, and then we got the opportunity to interact with the University of Melbourne. So they already have a very good project, the Smart Lab Village project, and they were doing a project in Majuli in Upper Assam especially. So almost like 4 years ago, and now we got hold at the end only. So the project is ended, but nevertheless we express our desire to associate with them, and in order to get their experiences and then transfer to a student, and then we can also motivate a little bit to our young generation, and then penetrate to the villages, what they do it, because it's academic, most of the thing are like theoretical, or like only just maybe I would say psychological learning, not much of the practical. So then this lockdown happened, as everyone know about that, so we could not do much. But we try to use this virtual platform, and then we so that our students keep motivated, and they are intact with the vision and the idea of how great people and a great social influencer like you, one of them. So how do they do it, and how can you keep yourself motivated, and then similarly in the train with that, how it penetrate and how successfully it was done, so that our student can also keep their energy always in the positive pro side. So that's the vision behind. And then we adopted 5 village here very close to our institute, but we haven't done so far. So we wanted to develop a certain database, and then also try to understand them, what is their requirement, how can we support as a knowledge partner. But we have a certain limitation. We don't do research and development because we are only undergrad student. But nevertheless, the research is something like that. You get to know after the practical exposure or experiences, or after the look. So this is all about our institute, and we have around 525 students here with chemical, electrical, mechanical, and civil. Well, I'm in a civil engineering department, so my designation is only a teacher. I'm just an assistant professor. There are people, in the hierarchy. So the principal is there, the head of a department would be there, and similarly, this how. And we are located in the lower part of Assam. Are you familiar with the geography of Assam, sir?
Uh, to a degree, I have been to Assam as well, but that
Oh,
does not
perfect.
guarantee that I would know everything. But yes.
Yes, yes, that's always there. India is has such big, and Assam is also one of that, largest island is there. So of course, I'm in
Majuli is the island
West
district,
Bengal.
right?
Yes, the island district where this smart village project was implemented
Yeah.
there, and they work with the people over there. So I'm toward the lower part of Assam, that is the southern part of Majuli. This is about I would say more than 600 kilometer away from there. So I'm very close to West Bengal. I'm very
Okay.
close to West Bengal. So I'm close to Bhutan. On the other side there is a Bhutan. Northern side we have a Bhutan. The southern side we have a West Bengal. Okay, so Mr. Sarath, I think we already waited. We've increased the time already, so I think we can start the session, right? Okay,
For
so
sure.
yeah, so may I request Padmini, who is there today? Padmini?
Yes, sir. I'm here, sir.
Okay, very good. So I would like to request you to take over the charge, okay, to introduce our speaker of the day to all the
Yes.
esteemed participant over there. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you
Okay,
so
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Be careful what you water your dreams with. Water them with worry and fear, and you will produce weeds that choke the life from your dream. Water them with optimism and solution, and you will cultivate success. Always be on the lookout for ways to nurture your dreams. Starting the workshop with this beautiful thought, I, Padmini, takes the privilege to welcome you all to the second session of our online workshop come seminar, Smart Villages by Intervention and Visible Solution. A very wonderful good afternoon to one and all present here. Respected Sharad Vivek Sagar Sir, founder and CEO Dextery Global. Respected Dr. Medelson Ronghang Sir, coordinator of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan and Smart Village Lab. Respected faculty members of all the distinguished colleges and dear esteemed participants. This workshop is jointly organized by Smart Village Lab local chapter, Binesha Brahma Engineering College, Kokrajhar and University of Melbourne, Australia under the umbrella of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. As we know, almost 350 million people of India live below poverty line. This workshop is just a small step towards developing those rural areas who are still deprived from the basic needs of life. And today, we have one of the youngest and the greatest social entrepreneur among us, who at the age of just 16 years old founded Dextery Global, none other than Sharad Vivek Sagar Sir. Though he does not require any kind of introduction, but still I would like to take the privilege of introducing such a great legend. Born in a village of Bihar, Sarat Sir was homeschooled until he went to school at the age of 12. He excelled in the field of education and academics. During the period of his schooling, he partook over 300 discussions for more than 20,000 children and youth and published over 200 newsletters. Heroically presiding over many student council, Sarat Sir also won national and international debates, quiz competition and secured multiple scholarships. He has represented India at major intergovernmental and several UN platforms like Japan, South Korea, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. In the year 2016, he completed his bachelor's degree in international relations from Tufts University, USA, and went to Harvard University for master's. He did his program on leading change, which he received as a part of Queen's Young Leaders Award from University of Cambridge. He is also titled with many prestigious awards and honors. In the year 2011, he was included in the 100 Heroes of Bihar listed by Hindustan. He was also among the 12 featured changemakers of India in the January edition of Subham Swarav. He was also awarded the World Summit Award, Youth Award under the patronage of UNESCO, which recognized Dextery Global for outstanding digital innovation and social impact. In the year 2013, Sharad Sir became the first-year student of Tufts University ever to win the $100K Entrepreneurship Challenge. It was the largest prize money that any entrepreneur ever received in the history of the competition. He was included in the Rockefeller Foundation Centennial list of 100 next century innovators. Also in the year 2014, he achieved the Paul and Elizabeth Montel Award Prize, which is a $40,000 award that recognizes future leaders in the business and non-profit world, commending outstanding tough students who demonstrate entrepreneurial skills. Sharad Sir also received the Davis Foundation Peace Prize for powering the next generation of leaders. He also received Wendell Phillips Award, Tufts University Senior Award, Senior Commencement Speaker, Samuel Huntington Public Service Award, Presidential Award for Citizenship and Public Service, Forbes 30 Under 30 Award from Tufts University, USA. In May 2016, Sharad Sir became the first Indian to deliver the graduation address at Tufts University and later that month turned down a master's degree from offer from Harvard University to return to India to continue working with children and youth. He was included in the Queen's Young Leaders list. He was also titled as Person of the Year 2017 by Apna Bihar for his endless contribution towards the state. He was recognized as the 100th most influential young leader, 100th most powerful young entrepreneur, and was awarded the Young Alumni Achievement Award by Tufts University. After many such accomplishments, his works on the front of social enterprising, research, startup consulting, and much more, he became frequent with the dignitaries like CEO of Apple, the President of the USA, and more such allied personalities. Sharad Sir reaches over 10 million people annually and is followed by over 5 lakh people on social media. He was one of the first and the youngest CEOs to be verified on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram powering his vision of creating a 21st century leadership to five 21st century challenges. He has spoken globally and been invited to some of the world's most prestigious and influential institutions, including the United States, the World Bank, Harvard, IITs, IIMs, and the White House. President Barack Obama invited him to the White House. Forbes listed him on the global Forbes 30 under 30 list. The Rockefeller Foundation inducted him in the list of 100 next century innovators. The Nobel Peace Center invited him to the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony, and India's leading media house, Divya Bhaskar, called him the Vivekananda of 21st century. His achievement and his awards are endless. The dedication he has towards nation building is on another level. We are blessed and very much fortunate to have you among us, sir. Getting to learn something from a living legend like you is a great opportunity to every one of us. Though virtually, it is a moment of great pride to us to have you here. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and being here with us. Thank you. Now I request you to take over the session forward. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Padmini, for doing your honor. So, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I think my task has been made very, very challenging after this long introduction, because now whatever I do will not be good enough, because everybody is expecting that, somebody who has had a career long enough with good enough awards will probably be something out of the world extraordinary. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Somebody did deep research on my LinkedIn and got everything. So I commend that. Very good research, very good, thank you for the introduction. I have not been doing digital speeches for quite some time. Ever since the lockdown began, there were so many webinars happening, so many digital lectures happening, that I decided not to do any. Because there was just too much happening everywhere. And otherwise, usually throughout the year, I travel extensively. I travel the length and breadth of our country. Last year alone, I did more than 258 public speeches in over 22 states, including some in Assam. In fact, this January, I was at IIT Guwahati. Overall, I usually travel a lot. I love speaking with young people, and especially at and through academic institutions. But once the lockdown started, I tried not to speak as much, because there was something happening everywhere, and I wondered the level of attention young people would have, or the quality of organizing that will be there. Because one of the most important parts of any kind of organizing is that what is the takeaway? And for that reason, I was trying to avoid it, but this is one of the very, very few speeches or lectures that I am doing. And the clear reason is, number one, the beautiful topic and concept that you have, what you are trying to look at, that is smart villages, the interventions that we can discuss, the larger idea of nation building through smart villages. So I think that one is exceptional. Second is, I have deep love for the Northeast. It is one part of our country where I hope that many more national and local role models come up from, because one of the things we can openly admit is that the amount of role models that the Northeast has given us, we have not integrated them into the mainstream as much. More young people in New Delhi, more young people in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, they need to know about the exceptional people, exceptional stories, and more so of young people from the Northeast, because that will lead to greater synergies, that will lead to greater coming together of our young people from all across. So in the Northeast, I have been trying to do as much as we can as an organization, and me in my personal capacity. In fact, just 2-3 days back, I was addressing our young people at the launch of eZin in Meghalaya. And my continuous engagement with Northeast, I hope, will continue to expand. This is definitely part of that hope that we can continue to have very good conversations and very good actions, and the larger idea is build role models where the greatest hopes lie is just looking at young people transforming their potential, getting good action done, and those should be role model stories, those should be role model people, and that is usually very helpful. Now I'll jump straight to the topic, talk a little bit about smart villages, talk a little bit about interventions, and the larger idea of nation building in general. The first thing I do want to quote is that Mahatma Gandhi, if we talk about him, one of the most important things that Mahatma Gandhi talked about was definitely about villages. One of the statements I remember repeating again and again at high school platforms, when I was in the debate circuit, when I was working with the UN on their Children and Youth Board, was that India does not live in its 6 metropolitans. It lives in its 600,000 villages and more. And that is the reason why it is very important that villages are seen as very important units. Villages are not the dumping ground. They are not the subsidiaries. They are not the side pockets of our cities. Villages are beautiful units, whole units in their own. And that tendency needs to be there when we are thinking about our villages, when we are imagining and visualizing a future for our villages, that villages in themselves are individual units. Many people find their economic life, their social life, their personal life fulfilled and satisfied in the village setup as well itself. Because many times we have this imagination that, oh, people in the village, their economic life is incomplete if they are in the village. Their social life is incomplete if they are in the village. Their personal aspirations are unfulfilled if they are in the village. That sort of an idea always continues to cut villages in a particular way, that the dependence always continues to build on our overpopulated cities in both ways. One, either it is in the terms of resource load, or it is in terms of migration, or it is in terms of cities being the only beacons of hope, and villages becoming, these subsidiaries, these small units that are trying to draw some energy from the city. The first idea that we need to have clear in our minds is that villages in their own can be fulfilling social, personal, and economic units, and that is something extremely important. Now, Mahatma Gandhi talked about villages again and again, and there is Mahatma Gandhi quotation that I want to share with our young people today, because so many of us have access to the world at our fingertips today. We open our mobile phone and we see everything that is happening in the world. We can see London and Tokyo and Paris, and we have aspirations of that kind of a life. That is the reason why a person living in a small village is dissatisfied, because that person is seeing what is happening in Mumbai or in Kolkata or in Bangalore. Somebody living in Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore can see what is happening in New York. So that person is feeling unfulfilled, that, oh, there is a very, very different quality of life that is there. So the aspirations are at our fingertips, but the understanding, I think there is a wonderful Mahatma Gandhi quote for that. Mahatma Gandhi used to say that I like to keep the windows and doors of my house open so that all good breeze can come in. And that is for all of us, that if there is a good idea that comes from New York City, we must take it. If there is a good idea that comes from Paris, we must take it. If there is a good idea that comes to our cities, we must take it. But the second part of Mahatma Gandhi says is very beautiful, that I like to keep the doors and windows of my house open so that good breeze can come in from all sides, but I refuse to be swept away by the wind. That is something that all of us need to keep in mind. We can keep our doors and windows open. There can be all sorts of influences. There can be all sorts of things that come in terms of ideas, in terms of products, in terms of whatever dimensions they may come from. But we must be able to hold our ground. The problem is that when the village is influenced by the city, it seems to be swept away by the city. When the city is influenced by the metropolitan, it seems to be swept away by the metropolitan. When the metropolitan is influenced by a mega city or a global city somewhere outside, it seems to be swept away by that. There is a very important thing that we need to keep in mind when we even start thinking about serving our villages or rebuilding our villages. Remember, India can develop only in an Indian way, in an Indian manner. Assam can develop only in an Assamese manner. We cannot, we are not, plants in some other nursery. That there are some plants that can grow this way. You cut a plant from somewhere, you go and you, put it somewhere and it begins to grow from that height itself. That is also a very good example. But you cannot graft Karnataka into Assam and hope that Assam will now grow like Karnataka. No, Assam will grow like Assam. Just like that, India will grow like India. And our villages have to grow like villages. The problem is, we see something that, okay, in Lebanon, something is happening. In Lisbon, something is happening. In Luxembourg, something is happening. So we begin to imagine that, okay, in a place called Latehar in India, what Luxembourg is doing, we'll do. Because for some reason, it seems very appealing that something that, comes from outside, that must be great. We have to look within. We have to see. Am I unmuted now? Yes. Audible? Okay. So we have to see that what strength our villages already have and how can we strengthen our villages further. The idea needs to be very focused on the resources that exist, other resources that need to be brought in, the potential that the villages show, not an aspirational picture that is shown from outside, and then groom it in that. I hope that I can, and all of you has something to do with the academia, either as students or faculty. I want to quickly quote an example instead of going too much into depth of one thing or the other. I want to quote an example. I hope all of you will at some point find time to read it. A great economist by the name of Jeffrey Sachs decided to eradicate the world of global poverty. So he started something called the Millennium Villages Project. And it was a project that would transform villages and it would get the world rid of poverty. Jeffrey Sachs was a rock star economist. Time magazine gave him the title, the rock star economist. He had helped a few South American countries and a few European countries to rebuild their economies when they were about to get bankrupt. And that is the reason why Jeffrey Sachs had a celebrity status. SACHS, that is the surname. So Jeffrey Sachs had this rock star status as an economist, and he came up with this project saying that, okay, I'm going to get the world rid of global poverty, of extreme poverty. And he started a very beautiful project called the Millennium Villages Project. Now, the Millennium Villages Project that Jeffrey Sachs initiated had a very simple idea. He said that people in the villages, we'll give them all a little bit of money, so that once they have some money, they'll start spending. Second, what we'll do is we'll build schools. Third, we'll build hospitals. Fourth, we'll build markets. And what we'll do is whatever they produce, we will increase that productivity by introducing new and modern agricultural techniques. Now, this sounds like a promising idea. A man who has helped 2-3 countries, their economies to rebuild when those countries were about to go bankrupt. Somebody who's exceptional in economics. So many billionaires across the world gave him a lot of money. And in fact, he went to Bill Gates as well. Bill Gates said that I'll give you $10,000 to research on your idea better. I'm not going to fund the project. I'm going to give you some money to think about it deeper. But well, he had a lot of money riding on him. There was a journalist by the name of Nina Monk. Nina Monk went to Jeffrey Sachs and said that you are today, a celebrity who's going to lift the world out of poverty. Can I get a very simple permission? I want to be the fly on the wall. What is a fly on the wall? A fly on the wall is that if you will sit in a meeting, I will just quietly sit in the room listening. I will not do anything. I'll just listen to whatever your meeting is, whatever you are saying, whatever is being said to you. And I want to document it. Eventually, I want to write a book about your story. Jeffrey Sachs agreed. Now he would go to Africa and presidents would come to receive him, presidents and prime ministers across the world rallying behind Jeffrey Sachs. It is a true story, no movie story. It is a true story. And Nina Monk writes all about it in a book called The Idealist. So The Idealist is the name of the book. Nina Monk is the author. So Nina Monk started following Jeffrey Sachs wherever he went. Now, Jeffrey Sachs would spend time, so they had selected a few villages to, transform first. And then they would do it for all the villages in the world. So these few villages that he had picked, he would go there, he started working. Of course, money was given, schools were opened, hospital was opened. And he would go back to the US. He was a professor at Columbia, actually. Probably he had left the job for some time when he was working on this. So he would go back and he would, make these presentations about how these villages are changing. And for 4 or 5 years, all billionaires continued to give him more money because all the indicators were positive. The productivity in the villages had grown tenfold. People were going to hospitals. People were sending their kids to school. The market was, every day, the purchasing power of people had increased. So everything was good and great. He was probably meeting the president of Zambia, I guess, at one point. He had gone there to pick a few more villages. The Zambian president said that your idea of development is not going to work for us. Like all these numbers, they are not going to change people's lives. Of course, Jeffrey Sachs, he was right now impassioned by his own journey. Why would he listen to anyone? Nina Monk writes the good things first. In fact, Bill Gates has written a review of the book. So anybody can go to Gates Notes and look for The Idealist. And it is a 2-page review, beautiful review. You'll get the whole idea. I'm sharing it for an important reason, because if this is the only message I give today, I think that will be enough. So what happens is these villages, of course, production went up 10 times. All good things are happening. People are seeing and they're like, yes, here is a man who is changing villages. 4 or 5 years later, it turns out that when they did deep enough research to understand, because the model failed within 4 or 5 years, everything had failed. Okay, it had actually failed within months. When good research happened, it was found out that these villages that had become 10 times, now they were producing something 10 times. So maize production is now happening 10 times in a village. People are dying of starvation. On one end, maize production has shot up 10 times and people are dying of starvation. How? Why? Earlier, they used to produce a little bit of, grains, a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of fruits. Whatever they needed, they were growing and they were able to have it. Now, in order to make this village, this model unit, production of maize went 10 times. There was no connectivity to the market. Roads were non-existent. Market did not have a demand outside. Now people are producing and that is being kept there. Markets had, of course, been opened within the village. And what people were doing, places were becoming garbage dumps and plastic dumps. New, these sachet products and bottle products, these things are coming. And people are using it as long as they had money. Because remember, earlier they had distributed a little bit of money to everyone. So close to $100, $110, I think they had given to everyone. As long as the money was there, people used it. After that, the money was spent. Their own crop growing pattern was altered. Their own production was impacted. And these people were in a very tough situation. Nina Monk documents this story very well, how a very noble idea, backed with so much of money, it ended up destroying the villages that it hoped to serve. What is the message for all of us? The message for all of us can be multiple fold, but the theme remains the same. The first fold is that our idea of development, just because we have gone to a school or a college, just because we think we care, may not be the idea of development that a particular village needs. That is the first. Second one is, there is a very old Chinese proverb which talks about, go not to teach, but to learn. Go not to help, but be helped. Go not to, bring people, go not to, bring people together, but to become one of them. But the larger idea is, many times we go in with an idea that we speak better Assamese or Hindi or English or Bengali. We have gone to colleges, we have degrees, so we know better. No, it is very important to listen to the people who live there. Listen to the people who actually face problems firsthand. That needs to be our focus. So as young people, any of us and all of us who hope to serve our villages, who hope to, revitalize our rural economy, who hope to serve our rural populations, it is important for us to understand development through their eyes, through their lifestyle, through their aspirations, as opposed to impose our aspirations on them. Else, on a PowerPoint slide deck, it will look brilliant that, oh, production in villages has gone up tenfold. But at the end of the day, if somebody like Nina Monk is documenting that in a book, we'll find out what the reality was. So this is a very important thing, to go in order to be educated in the problems that people have and then come up with solutions. Then to go to educate people about solutions they need but they don't know. So that is something extremely important to keep in mind. Now the second part of it, I hope that we'll open it up for questions eventually, so that I can, give more pointed responses. But second part of it, which is very important to keep in mind, of course, sectors in which in villages where we need to be of greatest help, will two of those will that, irrespective where you are, whether it is a village or it is a town or a city, the two sectors where we need to do more every day will remain education and healthcare. If education in the village is not strengthened, and that education needs to be holistic education, it cannot just be, English, math, science. It needs to be the skill sets that young people need. It needs to be, something that is in sync with employability. So these things kept in mind. So the first part will be education and healthcare. The second is agriculture for sure, and the rural economy. Whatever the village is good at. There are so many villages that are good at handicrafts. There are so many villages where there is something local, something indigenous to them that they are very good at. It can be weaving, it can be any art, craft, anything that is there. That rural economy and that existing agriculture, that needs to be strengthened. If it is being strengthened, that needs to be branded. We do not just need New York City branding itself in Nagaland. We need what is happening in Nagaland, that should be branded in New Delhi, or that should be branded in New York City. So strengthening whatever it is, it can be agriculture, it can be an important part of rural economy. First is strengthening it. Second is branding it or marketing it or reaching it to those parts of the country and the world where there is a market for them, because the village cannot, vegetables village can consume, or some little level, like small level of production the village can consume. But the larger surplus of the rural economy, that needs to have more takers all around. I am speaking to you from a place called Patna in Bihar, the capital city. There's a place called Bhagalpur in Bihar that has very good silk. So Bhagalpur silk is famous, and yet Bhagalpur is waiting to reach that higher level where that Bhagalpur silk can reach several parts of the world. There's also a place called Banka in Bihar that is also famous for silk, but even within Bihar, a lot of people don't know that Banka is famous for a particular kind of silk. So we have to identify these things in the rural economy, and we need to strengthen it within through training, through resources, through a little bit of education that is related to that particular field. And the second part is by branding it, positioning it, reaching it to the other markets that are outside the village. So these have to be the areas of concern. Now, many of you can choose. So agriculture and rural economy, you will have to go and understand the village for that what the village already does. Education and healthcare, that is where you can also take your outside interventions and you can enter into the village to serve or to strengthen the village. Because in education, if there is, some tried and tested technique that has worked in a similar socio-economic setting before, that technique can go into the village. There in that particular village, you can, if it is, scores in board exams or test taking, like whatever test scores young people are getting, if that has increased in some other part of the country because of a particular educational intervention or style of teaching or application, whatever it is, that you can go and you can introduce in the village. Second part of it is healthcare. In healthcare also, an outside intervention can be brought in. If there is, something that helps bring infant mortality down, if there is something that where some local literacy is important, if there is a group that you are forming within, whatever kind of intervention it is, that can also come in. But when it comes to rural economy and agriculture, there interventions cannot be top down. Some interventions can be top down, but they need to be bottom up. You need to understand that rural economy. You need to understand that agriculture and help it grow inside out. And that is something to keep in mind. So this is largely my twofold remark to you in the beginning. To give you one quick example, at Dexterity, the reason why the organization was founded, the organization that I run today, remember I founded it 12 years ago. I was a 16-year-old then. The young lady who was introducing me was so kind to call me legend 2 to 3 times, which I strongly deny. However, the thing is, I did not start Dexterity because, today in this country, any organization or startup, it is marketed with an idea. On a lazy summer afternoon, I got this idea. Dexterity's idea did not come to me on a lazy summer afternoon. It came through my lived experiences. I had lived in the small villages and towns of Bihar for first 12 years of my life. No good school around, so parents decided to teach me at home. While teaching me at home, they made sure we read newspapers. And newspapers used to come one day late. By that, you can understand how far-flung places I was growing up in. That today's newspaper would come tomorrow. So I used to read in these newspapers about young people from different parts of our country who would represent India abroad, who would represent India at an international competition, who would receive a full scholarship to go to, a top college in the world. And I used to wonder if I could do the same. But since I was not enrolled in a school, I could not participate in any of these competitions. And for that reason, I had to, just hold back that, I cannot participate. But I used to do something very simple. I used to write down the name of the opportunity or the scholarship or the conference, the month in which it takes place, who can participate and how. And I used to keep writing that down. At the age of 12, actually my siblings were older and they had to write their board exams. So we came to the capital city of Patna, which would become my hometown. And I went to school for the first time. Now I had this diary full of opportunities, local, national, international opportunities that I could participate in. And I started participating in all these opportunities. By the time I reached standard 12th, I had represented India in over 6 different countries, won several hundred competitions, received scholarships. And that was something that, parents, teachers, media, they all liked to celebrate. But there was something very contrasting in that story. I would come back from Japan or South Korea or Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, and like any student would, any standard 8th, 9th, 10th student would, I would come back and I would tell my friends about, how tall the buildings were, how clean the street was, how the flight landed, how many hours it takes, all these things like a child would tell. But I also used to tell my friends about the questions that were asked, the ideas that were put forward. And many times, my friends who came from small towns and villages of Bihar, who sat in a classroom next to me, they knew answers to questions that nobody at an international platform could answer. And I used to tell them, oh, you should have been there at this competition. Oh, you should have participated in this. Many times they had ideas that nobody at a global platform put forward an idea that bright. And I used to tell them, oh, you should have participated. That is when, in 2008, while still as a standard 9th, 10th student, I came up with the idea of Dexterity. The idea was twofold. And I'll finish just quoting those two folds because it is very consistent with this idea of learning from the people who you want to serve, how to serve them. So the twofold ideas that Dexterity started out with was, one, that if our children do not know about an opportunity, they will never get that opportunity. They will never succeed in it because they do not even know that these opportunities exist. So we started connecting young people with opportunities in real time so that every educational opportunity, English, math, science, art, music, sports, everything included, today on the 10th of every month, our children get to know about these opportunities. And there are millions of children across the country. In fact, even this applies the same to high school students and college students. So in fact, your college can also Dex Connect if they so choose. And Dex Connect is free and it is for everyone. And the reason why I know Majuli, the island district in Assam, because even on that district, there are children who are Dex Connected today. And there are children in villages, there are children in cities, in some of our weakest government schools and some of our strongest private schools, there are children who receive these Dex Connect opportunities. The second part of the idea why Dexterity was founded is also very simple. And that was, at these global platforms I saw, the young people who would talk about development, literacy, poverty, access to clean drinking water, they came from world schools and international schools in our country. These international schools and world schools you see, on the outskirts of Bangalore or Mumbai or Hyderabad, where the school fee is 5 times the salary of an average Indian middle-class mother or father. And the question that used to come to my mind was that, can we continue to parachute leadership? Somebody who has studied in Massachusetts is solving the problem, somebody from Massachusetts wants to solve the problem of Mumbai. Somebody from Mumbai is trying to solve the problem of Muzaffarpur. We need to get rid of that mindset and mentality. We need to build our leaders inside out. We need somebody from Muzaffarpur so well trained, so well educated, so well equipped that that child goes on to solve the problems that Muzaffarpur faces. We need somebody from Mumbai to fix the problems of Mumbai. And for that reason, Dexterity had a very simple founding idea. Let's build local role models. Let's bridge the gap between education and leadership and give these young children the exposure to good education, good leadership, innovative ideas, critical thinking, give them an entire global exposure and build them as servant leaders for India. And that local role model, that idea that we started, today we see there are so many Dexterity children who are today running grassroots organizations where they come from. Some of them have started for-profit and non-profit ventures, and they have all dedicated themselves to service. They go to the best institutions in the world, they study, they come back, and they commit themselves to local development, they commit themselves to nation building. That is something very important for all of us. I'll conclude with the larger Dexterity idea. At Dexterity, we say we are an educational organization, you see, and our mission statement is to power the next generation of leaders through educational opportunities and training. Now, many people tell me that, Sharatji, you do very good work. You are connecting children with opportunities. You enable them to secure scholarships. You talk about education. All of this is very good. Why do you talk about leadership? We don't want our children to become leaders. We want them to become doctors, journalists, engineers, not leaders. That is a major problem our country is facing today. The idea of leadership in our country is limited to political leadership. That is not true. Leadership is in every field. We need scientific leadership. We need agricultural leadership. We need leadership in music, leadership in sports, leadership in rural development. And the story of this country is the story of leadership of a few educated people who decided to make change happen. For those of us who are, today talking about villages, and we might feel pessimistic for some time, how will we develop villages? Remember, if you bridge the gap between your education and your leadership, these problems will be solved. What does that bridging the gap look like? At Dexterity, we talk about leadership as leadership is your ability to deliver value through whatever limited expertise you have. Now, what value can you deliver? If you are a 5-year-old child, you can help a 3-year-old child walk. Why are you helping the child walk? Because you can walk. Your expertise is walking and you are enabling somebody to walk. If you are a 15-year-old girl child in this country outside a government school and you help two girl children with two math problems, then you are a leader. Your ability is in mathematics and you are helping in math. These same children, in the evening, if one child teaches another child how to play badminton better, that child is a leader. If somewhere in our country, a child who's not a bureaucrat, who's not a politician, but that child is a standard 11th student and does not know very good English or Hindi, but knows good Assamese or Gujarati or Bengali or Kannada or Telugu, if that child writes an application for an old mother to get a widow pension card, that child is a leader. Whatever limited expertise we have, how we use it to deliver value, that is leadership. And why do we go to school and college? To increase that expertise. The journey of our country is the journey of educated people who made sure that their education translated into leadership. In 1947, Vikram Sarabhai returns from University of Cambridge and builds in this country a space program when only America and Russia were thought that these were two countries that could venture into space. In 1948, Verghese Kurian returns to the sleepy town of Anand in Gujarat, and he transforms India from a milk deficient country to the largest producer of milk in 1998 with one simple idea that was called a billion liter idea. And Amul today is everywhere. Amul transformed lives. It was the education of President Kalam that was, transferred into scientific leadership that gave us national security and that gave us also a statesman like him. It was the education of E. Sridharan, the Metro Man of India, that gave our country so much innovation in public infrastructure and public transport. So remember, we need to translate our education into leadership. We need to invest ourselves into our villages. Wherever we come from, we must try and serve those places. We must try and lift them up. But once we decide to do so, we must keep in mind what I started out with, Mahatma Gandhi's idea of keeping our doors and windows open, but not being swept away by the wind. The second part, we must try and let our villagers educate us. Let our villagers educate us the kind of development they envision and not make a mistake like Jeffrey Sachs made, the example that I gave from the book, The Idealist, written by Nina Monk. And the third part that I want to leave you with is education and healthcare need core interventions right now. Those interventions you must work on. And the rural economy and agriculture, there you need to let your villagers teach you, train you, and take you forward. So this is my larger remark on your beautifully chosen topic. Thank you so very much. My pranams to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable words and a valuable time. We are really very blessed, and I would really would like to share something about you. When I was going through some videos in YouTube, I found a video of yours, and you defined outstanding very beautifully. I would like to really share this with my participants. So sir said that when he was not that interested in a class lecture, he used to talk with his friend, and his teacher used to tell him to go out of the class, and he was standing outside. So hence he's outstanding. And this is something, sir, really being defined so beautifully and so perfectly. And so you are a real inspiration to many youth, and you are inspiring many youth. And sir, thank you so much for being here with us. And I would request our participants to forward questions to him if they want to ask any questions.
Sure. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask. In case there are no questions, there will be vote of thanks. But in any case, I hope we are running on time. No
If there is
questions?
any questions, I would like to request the participants to forward their questions, or else they can also write in the chat box if they have any questions.
Oh, in case they are typing, it might take some time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. In case nobody comes up with a question in real time, you can connect with me using sharadsagar.in. It will connect you directly to me through WhatsApp. You can ask your questions there as well. You can engage there as well. So there is a question from HP, whatever the full name is. Sir, what can we do to popularize Madhubani painting? So Madhubani painting is local to my state. Thank you for asking that question. I think it applies the same, to many other forms of painting or many other handicrafts across our country. There are 2 to 3 things we need to look at. One is producing these. I remember between 2002 and 2009, I used to work for a local nonprofit. So I was probably, 9-10 years old. And then I started working for a local nonprofit. And there we used to sell greeting cards made by students in Madhubani, and they used to do Madhubani painting on the greeting cards. And we used to sell that greeting card in order for these students to be able to pay their fee. But in order to make sure everybody was self-reliant, the cards used to come for 15 rupees. 5 rupees used to go in printing, publishing, everything, packaging of the card. 5 rupees used to go to the child who used to make it, and 5 rupees to the child who used to sell it. And it was a nice local economy sort of a thing. We used to do it very actively in order to make sure there was dignity of labor. Nobody felt that it was a poor people thing or a rich people thing. And we used to, sell these cards. The reason why that story came to my mind is that one thing we learned for sure was something has a good cause or something is local. That is no excuse for it to be poorly packaged, for it to be poorly made. If it is local, it should, be the best. And that is one thing to keep in mind, whether it is, local handicraft or it is a local painting. It needs to be, after that, the production part of it, the packaging part of it, it needs to be done well. That is one thing to keep in mind, because only that alone will allow us, to promote it further, take it further. The second part is we need to instill a few things in our habit. Like I remember when we used to sell the greeting cards, we used to ask some important hotels here in the city that can you please keep a stand of these student-made greeting cards at your reception counter, because there are people, celebrities coming to your hotel, there are international guests coming to your hotel. They might like these cards from students. So that was an idea. Then we started going to doctors and we started saying, once you have treated your patient, can you tell your, once your patient is being discharged, can you gift the patient a greeting card saying that I wish you, good health. Thank you for being a good patient. That sort of a thing. So these small innovations we were trying to do, small things we were trying to think of, and we saw quite some success. And that was especially with Madhubani painting. Now, the reason why I give both examples is the first example is for making sure that the quality of production and packaging is good. Only then the product goes forward. The second one is that we have to find ways in which these things come into our daily habit, where our gifting is happening, not through an Archie's computer printed card. It is also probably happening, let's say, computer processed Madhubani painting card. So it needs to come into our day-to-day habit. It needs to come into our day-to-day consumption. And that is the reason why when I started, I said it applies the same to many other art forms, handicrafts, painting, and so on and so forth. So that is something to keep in mind.
Yes, so thank you so much. It's motivational. So let me see if there is some question. Participant may ask a question. You can come live. You can unmute yourself. This is an opportunity to interact. Yes, okay. So I will read out. I'm scanning the chat, and so I will read one question for you. It's on how can we ensure the participant of rural people in development process. So this is asked by Satya Priya Sahu. So yes.
So the question is, how can we enhance the participation? And that will be, if I was to give a single sentence answer, it will be by letting them, do what they do, and enable them to do it in a better manner. Many times a complete shift, we are very young, innovative, educated people, no matter what our age. Many times we want a full 360 degree turn of things. We want to, turn everything around. No, what people are doing, the farmer needs to be a better equipped farmer. The local shopkeeper needs to be a better informed local shopkeeper. So that way, whatever they are doing, it was mentioned that President Obama had invited me to the White House. One of the examples that President Obama gave at the White House to us was a very practical example, one that I'll never forget. He said that many times young people see somebody who is not buying an electric car and they get very unhappy that, oh, that person is a climate change denier. That person is still, using an old car. It is polluting and doing this and doing that. And he said that, remember, your change needs to be affordable. Your innovation needs to be affordable. That somebody whose bread and butter, and in America, it is slightly more common to own a car than it is here. So there, he said somebody whose bread and butter depends on that person getting in the car, going somewhere 150 miles, then coming back. That person cannot buy your Tesla. But the person is not buying your Tesla does not mean that person does not believe in climate change. It is just that your change, your innovation is yet not affordable. So let's look at it from the reverse side. When do people take interest in your change? When do people take interest in a process or participate in a process? When there is something for them in the process. And when people see that, oh, there are side pieces to it, then they are not interested. So remember, our development process, if it enhances the prospects of their own social life, their own economic well-being, then they will be more likely to participate. They will be more likely to be a part. So we have to see how we can enhance their social, economic, personal life gains and well-being in the process. The next one is printing Madhubani art on Bhagalpuri silk. Of course, it's a good idea. I wish you well. You should take it forward.
Yes. So any more question? If so, I could not see. Maybe the participant need to be warm up more. It's an evening. So, but still, so Mrs. Sarath Sagar, so like, let me ask on behalf of the institute and also our participant, maybe all of us there could be thinking like we are new, or we just start thinking. You have been started thinking more than 20 years ago. So now, how can this Dineshwar Brahma Engineering College institution, as a part of this Innov Bharat and Smart Village Lab, can get your mentoring or your support or your idea? Like one was very clear that we have to go and understand the village what they need, rather than we are giving it from our end or putting from our knowledge or research outcome. So this is what I was expecting, or I was like looking, how can we,
after how can we, I think I have lost
kind of yes. So this is what I was saying is that how can this Dineshwar Brahma Engineering College can get a mentorship or a support or advisory in some point of in the future, some point of life, some point of venture.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Swaraj sir was in touch with like Mr. Swaraj Priyadarshi must have been in touch with the office, the college
Yes,
end.
sir.
there can be,
Yes.
some email communication, and we can, either in an informal manner or through an MOU, whatever it is, we are very happy to make ourselves available, both in terms of, if the question is mentorship from our end, is that what the question is?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So
So that we
either
know.
informally, yeah, exactly. Either informally or formally through an MOU or something. We are happy to extend whatever resources we can from our end. Specifically, the preliminary, like what our core expertise is in enabling young people to grow as
Mm.
leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and
Mm.
so I think as a college there will be three possible synergies. The first one is absolutely Dex Connect, where if the institution gets Dex connected on the 10th of every month, research grants, fellowships, competitions for your undergraduate students that you'll start receiving. So that will be a good thing for the students. Second thing is there is something called Dexterity School of Leadership and Entrepreneurship, where we bring close to 60 young people from all across India. We train them as local role models. Then they go back to their own colleges or schools, and they continue, as like they are literally transformed in that entire period. So that is something they can look at. There is, of course, Dexterity to College, where for now these students are already undergraduate, but as graduate fellows, they can look at, from after they study their undergraduate years here, as graduate fellows, they can go to top institutions across the world. That platform is there. During COVID, we started something called the 1,000 Internships Program, where we provide internships to young people, and we provided it to 1,000 young people over the summer. We'll probably also do it during winter, because young people right now have a serious crisis of internships, especially those who do not have especially those who do not have connections and all these things. So for them, and in fact, this time around, so many of our young people from Northeast interned. So those internships also are a very good opportunity. And they get, along with the internship, they get something called a career readiness program that enables them to be better prepared for the workforce, and also for higher education, both the things, whatever track they want to choose to move forward. So there is a lot of room, lot of synergy for students directly. Then the second level of synergy is if there is a student club on the group, or if there is a group like this on the campus, and they have some intervention in the village, there, monthly or bi-monthly meetings can be set up, so that whatever brainstorming or idea bouncing they want to do, and whatever mentoring they need in running a project in a village or identifying a need in a village, in that also, in many of those meetings I can be present as well, and that kind of two-way process can be run. But this is, a comprehensive answer, hopefully, to your question. And there can be an email communication, and, the office will engage for sure in whatever way is possible. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's
Thank
an
you.
excellent. So this is what. So our young boys also get motivated. Hand holding.
Yes.
Support. Yeah, that's very important, because I'm just you can say I'm a nursery, kindergarten student in the field of this village transformation or a motivation. And I really don't know what to do, but I want to do it. With the team, and with the young student. So that's the thing. That's why this meeting or this session was organized, that we can understand what we can do. Well, because what we see from here, it's really very different than what is needed actually. So thank you, Mrs.
Yes.
Sarath, for your
Thank you very
valuable
much.
time, yeah, and sharing. So if the participant doesn't have any question, then I think we should thanks for the time and
Yes.
sparing. Thank you so much, Sarath. So hopefully we'll keep in touch
Okay.
in future also. Bye
Okay.
bye. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for the
much.
time.
Thank you,
Yes. Yeah.
everybody, for your
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
patient and quality participation. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank
sir.
you so much. Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, so participant may, I request you to please put the feedback before you leave, and then I request that you are there, because this feedback would be off by 15 minutes from now. So I'm going to share this feedback form. So please remember that this is very important for your attendance, because attendance we are marking in two way. One is this number of hour you are available here, and another one is that the I hope I'm sharing the right session. Yes. So this is the form I'm sharing you there. Yes, Simran Gogoi, thank you so much. So please fill the form over there. It is shared. So give a a feedback on that, so we can understand whether we are doing it in the right way, or is there some changes is required, some modification is required. But I'm really very happy, that today you all are there, and also our esteemed speaker, you already know from his introduction that he is a global change maker, and we really need to hell on him and request him, and be with us, so that we also be the reason of, in this universe, in this world, why we are born. We are living in this country, in the universe, so let's be there. So thank you so much for joining, and hope to see you tomorrow. This tomorrow session would be also shared by our technical team. Padmini, you are listening, right?
Yes, sir, I'll share it today itself. The morning session link I'll share it today itself, and the afternoon session I'll share it tomorrow.
Okay, excellent, excellent, very good. So please take care of all also, so that if there is any
Sure, sir.
difficulty, they can contact you. Please keep
Yes,
your
sir.
phone and everything all right.
Please
Yeah.
feel free to contact me if you all have any kind of queries. And I request every one of you to please join tomorrow also and make this workshop a grand
Ye-
success.
Yes, yes, we have pile of my Galaxy of speaker all these 7 days. So I think there will be a lot many take away today. Take away for me is really very much very much heart touching. That we have to understand from their perspective. This is very very much important. So let's set our goal. Okay. So thank you so much. And I just saw somebody raising a hand. Do you want to speak something, or is it nothing by accident you raise your hand? Okay, no problem. So it's all. So then, chalo. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.